That was my 34th birthday, and I thought I'd have a quiet evening. Maybe a simple dinner with Julie, my wife, at our small apartment in the Chicago suburbs. But no life has a way of blindsiding you in ways you never expect. Picture this. You walk into a room full of people expecting a birthday cake, but instead, your wife throws divorce papers in your face in front of her entire family who are toasting champagne to celebrate your downfall. Sounds like a Netflix drama, right? But that's exactly what happened to me. And this story isn't just about betrayal. It's about how I got back up, rebuilt my life, and proved that sometimes the worst moments are the start of the best ones. Stick with me because this tale will make you rethink how you face life's punches, and I promise you'll want to hear it to the very end. I'm Todd, an ordinary guy raised in a small Indiana town where success meant a steady job and a car that didn't break down on the highway. I met Julie in college, a beautiful, smart business major from a wealthy family in Chicago's posh North Shore. I was the opposite, a scholarship kid working 3 part-time jobs to cover tuition, surviving on ramen and cheap coffee. Julie and I fell in love, or so I thought. We married after 4 years of dating, but her family never accepted me. Her dad, Bronson, a name straight out of an 80s action movie villain, always called me the small-town kid with a mocking tone. Her mom asked about my little job even after I got promoted to team lead at a tech company downtown. To them, I'd always be unworthy. Our marriage wasn't always bad. There were sweet moments like when Julie and I binge-watched The Office on the couch or when she made pancakes on Sunday mornings. But in the last 2 years, things started to shift. Julie spent more time with her family, came home late from work events smelling of expensive perfume I didn't recognize. She laughed more at texts on her phone, but not with me. I wasn't clueless. I had my suspicions, but I told myself if I worked harder, put in more hours, earned more money, bought the house she dreamed of, things would be okay. I was wrong. My birthday rolled around, and Julie said she had planned something special. She was secretive all week, constantly texting, giggling to herself. I thought maybe a surprise party, or at least a nice gift. After work, yes, I had to work on my birthday because bills don't pay themselves. I got a text from Julie telling me to come to her parents' house in Winnetka, a ritzy neighborhood with mansions the size of hotels. It felt odd since their house was the last place I wanted to be, but I drove over thinking maybe Julie wanted to mend things with her family, get them to stop looking down on me. I walked into the living room and the world slowed down. The room was packed. Julie's parents, her sister Annabelle, a few cousins and family friends I'd only met a handful of times. They all held champagne glasses, but no one was smiling at me. The air was heavy, like I'd just walked into a trial. Julie stood there in an expensive red dress, her smile cold and emotionless. "Todd," she said, "we have a special birthday gift for you." Her dad, Bronson, chuckled. Not a happy laugh, but the smug kind from someone who knows they're about to win. Then Julie pulled out a beige envelope from behind her back. For a second, I thought it might be plane tickets or some crazy gift. But then she said words sharp as knives. "Surprise, I'm leaving you for someone who's not a loser." The room went silent except for Bronson's laugh. He spoke, his voice dripping with contempt. "We never thought Julie would end up with a lowlife like you. Thank God she's finally come to her senses." Julie's mom popped another bottle of champagne and they started pouring more glasses like they were at a graduation party. They had planned this moment, turning my birthday into a celebration of my destruction. I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. Julie shoved the envelope into my hand, divorce papers already filled out, just waiting for my signature. What did they want? For me to cry, beg, make a scene. But something inside me hardened. I looked at every smug face in that room. My wife, who I thought I'd grow old with, her family, who always treated me like trash, and I felt nothing. It was like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. I asked Julie for a pen. Her smile faltered clearly, not the reaction she expected. Bronson handed me his fancy Mont Blanc pen, the kind a regular guy like me only sees in ads. I walked to their white marble kitchen counter, spread out the papers, and signed every line without a word. The only sound in the room was the scratch of the pen and someone clearing their throat awkwardly. When I was done, I looked straight at Julie and said, "Thanks for the birthday gift. It's the best one I've ever gotten." Then I walked out, not slamming the door, not yelling, just leaving. Their faces when I didn't crumble like they expected were worth more than any revenge. I got in my car and drove no idea where I was going. I ended up at a dive bar in the suburbs where no one knew me. I ordered a whiskey, then another, staring at my phone as Julie's texts started rolling in. "Why didn't you say anything? Are you really not going to fight for us? You just proved I was right to walk away." I didn't reply. After the third drink, the numbness started to fade, replaced by a cold anger. Not the explosive kind that makes you smash things, but the calm, calculated kind that makes you want to dismantle someone's world. 6 years with Julie and her family, I knew too much. They treated their staff like objects, and when you're around people like that, you hear things you're not supposed to. I knew about their accountant who got drunk at parties and bragged about creative bookkeeping. I knew about Julie's cousin who slept with his sister's husband. And I knew about Bronson's business trips, which had nothing to do with business. That night, I did 3 things. 1, I called Larry, my friend, a ruthless Chicago divorce lawyer who could make opponents tremble with a single email. 2, I started screenshotting every suspicious text from Julie I could access on our shared cloud account. 3, I made a list of every business contact and friend who needed to hear my side of the story before Julie could spin her own. I didn't go home that night. I crashed at a friend's place and woke up to a phone flooded with texts from Julie, now shifting from smug to panicked. She thought I'd beg her to come back. Instead, by noon the next day, Larry had filed a counterclaim. I withdrew half the money from our joint account, leaving her share. I'm not an idiot and rented a storage unit to move my important stuff out while Julie was brunching with her family, probably laughing about how I was definitely falling apart. A week later, I rented an Airbnb in Evanston to regroup. Julie went from smug to angry, then to calling every hour, sending texts like, "This wasn't supposed to happen. No, Julie, it wasn't." But let me pause and share a real story so you know I'm not the only one. I have a friend, Sarah, in Denver. Her husband cheated with a coworker and announced their divorce at a family reunion in front of everyone. Sarah was blindsided but didn't break. She hired a lawyer, gathered proof he was embezzling from his company, and won a hefty settlement. Then she learned graphic design, opened a small studio, and now lives happily with a new guy. Sarah's story, like mine, shows you can turn pain into power. Psychological studies say resilience adapting to adversity can cut depression risk by 30%. I'm trying to live that way one step at a time. A few days after the birthday fiasco, I was combing through our shared cloud account to save old photos before Julie deleted them. Then I found a folder labeled Work Presentations. Curious, I opened it, and it wasn't work. Hundreds of screenshots of texts between Julie and Ronan, her coworker, spanning 8 months. Pet names, hotel plans, a flood of emojis, and selfies of them in places Julie said she was working late. I sent everything to Larry, who texted back, "Christmas came early this year." I didn't blast the evidence online, though I wanted to. Instead, I let Larry handle it because revenge is easy, but legal victory lasts. I decided to focus on myself. I moved into a month-to-month apartment in Lakeview, not fancy, but with a small balcony where I could sit and watch the stars. For the first time in years, I felt peace. I started hitting the gym not for a revenge body, though I'll admit that was part of it, but to burn off the anger. First week, my arms shook lifting weights. Now I'm starting to see muscle. I also reconnected with friends Julie hated, like Mike, who she once mocked for bringing cheap wine to dinner. Mike's still a great friend, and we started hosting weekly board game nights. I even launched a small side business refurbishing old furniture, which Julie always called flea market trash. I sold my first piece on Etsy, made a $27 profit, but it felt like winning the lottery. These small steps reminded me of someone I know, John, a veteran in Seattle. His wife left him while he was in PTSD treatment. Instead of breaking, John volunteered at an animal shelter, adopted a 3-legged dog named Buddy, and started crafting furniture from reclaimed wood. Now he runs a small business and speaks at veteran groups about finding purpose. John, like me, turned pain into purpose. While I rebuilt, Julie fell apart. Her fling with Ronan ended when he was caught leaking her family's business info to a rival. Her dad fired him, and Ronan ditched Julie, taking a stash of sensitive data with him. Julie, blinded by infatuation, had covered for Ronan by fudging work reports. When it unraveled, Bronson cut her off, no job, no allowance, no luxury apartment. She bounced from friend's couch to friend's couch, but no one put up with her long. Eventually, she was sleeping in her Audi, parked outside my place, texting please. I've been in my car for 2 days. I have nowhere to go. Then I learned something bigger. Bronson's high-end real estate firm was under investigation for financial fraud thanks to Ronan's leaks. Their assets were frozen and they had to downsize drastically. The family that mocked me was now scrambling to survive. It was justice, but also a reminder you reap what you sow. I'd seen corporate scandals in Chicago before where executives cut corners and lost everything. Julie's family was no different. One night I saw Julie's car parked outside via my doorbell camera. I wrestled with myself but went out to talk. Julie looked wrecked, disheveled hair, old clothes, visibly thinner. She spilled everything her parents pressured her to divorce me, thinking she could upgrade with Ronan and take half my assets. The birthday stunt was their plan to humiliate me, make me sign quickly. She regretted it, but her pride stopped her from admitting she was wrong. She begged to come back, saying she'd grown. I did something unexpected. I thanked her. Not for her, but because the divorce showed me who she and her family really were. The last 6 months were brutal, but they freed me. I let her sleep on my couch for one night, but in the morning I told her she had to figure her own way out. That morning, Bronson called and Julie had him on speaker. His voice wasn't smug anymore, but desperate. His company was crumbling, and he asked if I could connect him with anyone in the industry. I declined, but referred him to Mia, a woman I was dating who's a pro at salvaging corporate reputations. Julie was stunned to learn I'd moved on so far. She left to stay with her sister, asking if I'd ever forgive her. I said I had, not for her, but for me, because holding on to anger just wears you down. Now, 6 months later, I live in a small house in Oak Park with a yard for a dog. I adopted Max, a 3-legged pit bull who steals my socks but is my best decision ever. My furniture business is growing, not huge, but enough to cover coffee and Netflix. I'm dating Mia, keeping things light but healthy. I hike, build furniture, live for myself. Julie's Instagram is silent while I post ordinary moments, Mac's friend's life. The divorce, though painful, set me free. Sometimes I think the worst things lead you to the best. Have you ever overcome a nightmare and realized it was the best thing that ever happened? Let me know, because I'm still learning to live as my best self. My life moved on, seemingly finding peace after the divorce storm. But life, like a Hollywood director, always knows how to throw in a twist that catches you off guard. One Saturday afternoon, I was in my small backyard workshop sanding an oak table I planned to sell on Etsy when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, a random number 3112 area code right in Chicago. I don't usually answer unknowns, but something nudged me to pick up. The voice on the other end stopped my heart. Todd, it's Ronan. Ronan, the coworker. Julie cheated with the guy who sabotaged her family's company and vanished like a ghost. Why was he calling me? I kept my voice steady, but my mind raced with scenarios. He said, voice shaky, I need to meet you. I know this sounds crazy, but I have information you need to hear. Not about Julie, about Bronson. I almost laughed. Bronson, my arrogant ex-father-in-law, now begging for help, and now Ronan wanted what? But his voice had a desperate edge, not the cocky vibe I'd imagined. I agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in Andersonville, not because I trusted him. I just wanted to know what game he was playing. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop, a cozy spot with the smell of fresh waffles and soft jazz playing. Ronan was already there, tucked in a corner, looking far from the slick guy in his selfies with Julie. He was gaunt, hair messy, wearing a rumpled gray hoodie. He got straight to the point. I know you hate me and I deserve it. But Bronson isn't just a rich jerk. He's into dirtier stuff than you think. He pulled out a small USB drive and slid it across the table. This is proof: emails, contracts, bank transfers. Bronson wasn't just cooking books. He was laundering money for a group in Eastern Europe through his real estate projects. When I worked for him, I found out and I kept everything. I stared at the USB, feeling like I was holding a bomb. Ronan went on. I didn't give it to the cops because I'm in it too. But I want Bronson to pay, and I think you do too. I didn't touch the USB right away. I asked why he was giving it to me after everything he did to Julie and her family. He gave a hollow laugh, eyes empty, because I've got nothing left. Julie ditched me when I wasn't useful anymore. Bronson threatened to destroy me if I talked. You're the only one I know who won't let this die. I didn't fully trust him, but I took the USB home, plugging it into my laptop with some trepidation. What I saw chilled me. Dozens of emails between Bronson and unfamiliar names discussing investments with millions moved through accounts in the Caymans. There were fake contracts for Chicago real estate projects, buildings that were never built. If this was real, Bronson wasn't just facing an investigation, he could go to prison. I called Larry, my lawyer, right away. He practically shouted through the phone, "Todd, you struck gold. If this is legit, we can flip the whole game." Larry advised not handing it to the police yet, but to a friend of his at the FBI who specializes in financial crimes. But before doing anything, I wanted to make sure Ronan wasn't playing me. I hired a private investigator, Carla, a former Chicago cop, to verify the info. Carla worked fast, and within a week she confirmed that at least some accounts on the USB matched transactions under scrutiny. But she warned Todd, if you dive into this, there's no going back. Bronson has connections you don't want to mess with. While I weighed my next move, Julie showed up again. This time she knocked on my door during a torrential rain, soaked and shivering. I let her in not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't leave anyone out in that weather. She sat on my couch, clutching a coffee I made, and started crying. "Todd, I know you don't want to see me, but I need your help. My dad, he's pressuring me to testify against Ronan. He says if I don't, he'll cut me out of his will forever." I almost laughed Bronson, who once mocked me, now using his daughter as a pawn in his game. But then Julie said something that floored me, and I think he knows you have something against him. He mentioned you saying you're trying to destroy our family. That hit like a punch. Bronson knew about the USB, how only me, Ronan, Larry, and Carla knew. I stayed calm, pressed Julie for more, but she didn't know specifics, just that Bronson was stressed, constantly checking his phone and meeting strangers at his office. I realized I was being pulled into a much bigger game than a divorce. That night after Julie left, I couldn't sleep. I thought about handing the USB to the FBI, but I was scared. Bronson wasn't the type to go down easily. I'd seen him ruin a business rival's career over a minor contract. If he knew I had evidence, I could be a target. The next day, I met Mia, the woman I'm dating, for advice. Mia's not just beautiful, she's a genius at handling corporate crises. We sat in a park near Lake Michigan with Max, my dog, chasing a squirrel. I told her everything about the USB, Ronan, Julie, and Bronson. Mia listened, then said something that woke me up. "Todd, you don't have to be the hero. But if you stay silent, you'll live with guilt forever. Give it to the FBI, but protect yourself first." She suggested hiring a criminal defense lawyer for guidance and contacting an investigative journalist she knew to ensure the story went public if Bronson tried to retaliate. I followed Mia's advice. I met with a criminal defense lawyer, Vince, a tough guy who'd handled Chicago mafia cases. Vince helped me safely deliver the USB to the FBI through an anonymous channel. I also sent a copy to the journalist Rachel at the Chicago Tribune. Rachel called me 2 days later, voice buzzing with excitement. "Todd, if what you sent is real, this is the biggest Chicago scandal in a decade. But I need you to be a witness. Are you in?" I hesitated. Being a witness meant facing Bronson head-on and maybe worse. But then I remembered his smug grin on my birthday, his laugh as Julie threw the divorce papers at me. I told Rachel I'm in. While waiting, my life started unraveling. One morning, I found my car tires slashed outside my house. No cameras, no witnesses, but I knew it wasn't random. I started getting calls from unknown numbers, just breathing on the other end. Max got restless, barking at night. I installed more security cameras and started carrying pepper spray. Mia was worried, but stayed by me, even crashing at my place some nights, so I wasn't alone. Once she joked, "Todd, you sure know how to keep a relationship exciting." I laughed, but inside I knew things were getting dangerous. Then the biggest twist hit. One evening while walking Max in the park near my house, a black SUV pulled up beside me. Two big guys in suits, not the office kind, got out. One said, voice low, "Todd, the boss wants to see you. Don't make this hard." My heart pounded, but I stayed cool. "Which boss?" I asked, though I had a guess. He didn't answer, just gestured to the car. Max growled, fur bristling. I tightened his leash and said, "If your boss is Bronson, tell him to meet me like a man." The other guys smirked, but they didn't force me. They got back in and drove off, leaving me sweating in the cold. I called Vince immediately and told him everything. He told me to stay at a safe house in the suburbs where he could ensure security. I grabbed Max and a few clothes leaving my house that night. There I got word from Rachel the FBI had launched a formal investigation based on my USB. They'd raided Bronson's office and seized his computers. Rachel said her article would hit the front page in days titled "Chicago Real Estate Empire Crumbles in Money Laundering Scandal." But she warned Bronson's trying to pin blame on others, including you. Stay sharp. I couldn't believe I'd been sucked into something this big. From an average guy betrayed by his wife, I was now at the center of an international financial scandal. Julie called nonstop, leaving tearful voicemails. "Todd, my dad says you destroyed our family. Why are you doing this? I just wanted us to work out." I didn't respond. I wasn't angry at Julie anymore, but I wasn't responsible for her either. She'd chosen her path and I was on mine. While hiding in the safe house, I started reflecting more on my journey. I thought of someone I knew in Indianapolis, Maria, who lost everything when her husband ran off after a financial scam. Her in-laws blamed her, society shunned her, but she didn't break. She opened a small bakery, raised 3 kids alone, and now speaks as an inspirational figure about overcoming adversity. Maria's story reminded me that no matter what life throws at you, you can choose to stand up. I started journaling, writing down everything, not just the scandal, but how I found strength in the darkest moments. A week later, Rachel's article dropped. It was a bombshell in Chicago. Bronson was arrested, his cuffed image plastered across every news channel. His company collapsed, investors bailed, and his family was thrust into the spotlight for his crimes. Julie appeared in a side article described as an employee manipulated by Ronan. I felt a flicker of pity for her, but it passed. She'd chosen to side with her family, and now she faced the consequences. But the story didn't stop. One day, back at my house, after the FBI cleared me to return, I got a handwritten letter, no sender listed. Inside was a note. "You went too far, Todd. This isn't over." No signature, but I knew where it came from. I gave the letter to Vince, and he upped my security. I started wondering if I'd ever escape Julie's family's shadow. But then I looked at Max snoring on the couch and remembered I'd survived the worst. I had friends, Mia, my work. I wasn't the guy they mocked on my birthday anymore. I was Todd, who stood up and fought. I kept writing my blog, and it started gaining traction. A Chicago publisher reached out offering to turn my story into a book. I haven't decided, but the idea excites me. I also started volunteering at the animal shelter where I got Max. I helped train abandoned dogs, preparing them for new homes. Once I brought a puppy to a family in Evanston, and the kid's smile as he hugged the dog showed me life isn't just about winning. It's about making moments that matter. Meanwhile, Julie sent me a long text, the first not begging to reconcile. She apologized genuinely and said she was trying to rebuild her life. She's working part-time at a grocery store and taking an online accounting course. I didn't reply, but I hope she finds her way. Bronson, per the news, is awaiting trial, with rumors he's cooperating with the FBI for a lighter sentence. Ronan oddly vanished entirely. Some say he's hiding in South America, but no one knows for sure. Mia and I are getting closer. She took me to an outdoor concert at Millennium Park, and as we sat on the grass listening to music and eating Lou Malnati's pizza, I realized I was happy, not the flashy Instagram kind, but real quiet happiness. Max is the neighborhood star, and I even got invited to speak at a community event in Oak Park about overcoming adversity. I'm no expert, but I shared my story, and when people clapped, I felt I'd come a long way. But life never lets you rest long. One morning as I was making coffee, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera and saw Annabelle, Julie's sister, looking anxious. I opened the door and she nearly broke down. "Todd, I need your help. Julie, she's missing." She left a note saying she couldn't handle the pressure anymore and no one knows where she is. My heart sank. I didn't love Julie anymore, but I didn't want her doing anything reckless. Annabelle added, "And a strange man came to my apartment asking about you. I think it's tied to my dad." I felt pulled back into the whirlwind. I called Vince, who suggested contacting the FBI about Julie. Meanwhile, Annabelle and I started searching, checking places Julie frequented: coffee shops, parks, even the restaurant where she worked. We didn't find her, but I uncovered a clue. A text on Annabelle's phone from Julie sent from an unknown number saying she was at a motel in suburban Joliet. We drove there, and when we arrived, I saw Julie sitting on the curb hugging her knees, a shadow of herself. She looked at me, eyes red, and said, "Todd, I don't want to live anymore. It's all my fault." I didn't know what to say, but I sat beside her, letting her talk. She said after the article her community turned on her. Friends she'd had for years ghosted her. She felt she'd ruined her family, and the investigation pressure broke her. I didn't hug her or promise to save her, but I said, "Julie, I thought my life was over when you handed me those divorce papers. But I'm still here. You can be too." I called Annabelle and we took Julie to a mental health support center in Chicago where she agreed to stay for help. Finding Julie made me realize something. Forgiveness isn't just letting go of the past, it's allowing yourself to live without being haunted by it. I went home, hugged Max, and felt lighter, but the story wasn't over. A week later, Vince called, voice tense. "Todd, the FBI just nabbed a guy tied to Bronson, and he confessed Bronson hired people to tail you. The letter, the slashed tires, that was Bronson. He wanted to scare you into backing off." I was stunned. Bronson, even facing prison, was still trying to get me. I decided to go public. I wrote a long blog post detailing everything from the birthday to the USB to the threats. The post went viral, and I got hundreds of supportive messages from everywhere. A local TV station invited me for an interview. I agreed not to brag, but to warn others about what happens when you challenge the powerful. The interview aired, and for the first time, I felt like more than a victim. I was someone who'd changed the narrative. Now I'm still in Oak Park, still making furniture, still walking Max. Mia and I are planning a Yellowstone trip this summer. My furniture business is growing, and I just signed a contract with a Milwaukee store. Julie, per Annabelle, is making progress in recovery. Bronson's still awaiting trial, and I hear he's lost most of his friends and allies. Ronan's still a mystery, but I don't care anymore. I've found peace not because everything's perfect, but because I know who I am and what I want. If you're still listening, I want you to know life's never easy, but it's worth fighting for. I thought I'd never get past that birthday, but here I am living a life I love. You can too. Start small, a walk, a smile, a dream. I'll keep sharing my story and I want to hear yours. Keep going because who knows what's waiting for you ahead. After the TV interview, I thought I'd hit a milestone, not a total victory, but a moment where I reclaimed my voice. But life, as I've learned, never lets you rest too long. Just days after the broadcast, I got an email from an anonymous address. No subject, just one line. "You think you're safe, but you're on thin ice." No signature, no clues, but I felt the chilling threat in every word. I forwarded it to Vince, my criminal defense lawyer, who immediately contacted the FBI. "Todd," he said, voice grave, "this isn't a game anymore. Bronson may be behind bars, but he has loyalists. You need to disappear for a while." Disappear. I'd just rebuilt my life, my Oak Park house, my furniture business, Max, Mia. Leaving felt like betraying myself. But then I remembered the slashed tires, the black SUV, the handwritten note. I couldn't take the risk. Vince arranged for me to stay at a small cabin in Wisconsin near Lake Geneva, a few hours from Chicago. I took Max a suitcase of clothes and my laptop. Mia wanted to come, but I convinced her to stay, promising daily calls. "I don't want you caught in this crossfire," I said, though I knew she was tough enough to handle anything. The cabin was deep in the woods with a creaky fireplace and spotty Wi-Fi. That first night, I sat by the window watching Max sleep on a rug, wondering how my life had turned into a thriller movie. From an ordinary guy betrayed by his wife, I was now hiding out like a character in The Fugitive. But I wasn't Harrison Ford, and this wasn't a movie, this was real. While in hiding, I kept writing my blog, but more cautiously. I used a VPN and didn't reveal my location. My blog now had thousands of followers from across the US and even some abroad. They sent emails sharing their own stories, people betrayed, belittled, but finding ways to rise. One email from a woman in Atlanta. Karen hit me hard. She said her husband left her for a younger woman, leaving her with 2 kids and a pile of debt. Karen started baking from home, selling online, and now runs a small bakery. "Your story made me believe I could do it," she wrote. Messages like that reminded me that even while running, I still had a purpose. But the calm at the cabin didn't last. One night around 2 a.m., Max bolted up barking fiercely at the door. I grabbed my pepper spray and peeked through the window. A black pickup truck was parked about 50 yards away, lights off, but I saw a figure inside. My heart raced. I called Vince, but the cell signal was too weak. I locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat in the dark holding Max to calm him. After an hour, the truck left, but I didn't sleep. The next morning, I found a note tucked under my car's wiper. "Stop, or it won't just be you." I snapped a photo and emailed it to Vince. He replied instantly, "Todd, get out of there. Now." I packed up, put Max in the back seat, and drove to another small town, renting a motel room under a fake name. There I got a call from Rachel, the Chicago Tribune journalist. "Todd, we just got an inside tip. Bronson hired a crew to intimidate you, but there's a bigger problem. One of his partners, a guy named Victor, doesn't want you testifying. He's not local, has ties to international crime." I nearly dropped the phone. "International crime? I'm just a guy who makes furniture, not James Bond." Rachel said the FBI was tracking Victor, but I needed to stay off the grid until they caught him. While on the run, I started feeling like I was losing myself. I missed the simple days in Oak Park when Mia and I grabbed tacos at the Mexican joint near my house, or when Max chased a ball in the park. I called Mia every night, and she always found ways to make me laugh, telling me about weird clients at her job or how she burned her toast. But I knew she was worried, and I hated making her live in fear. I started wondering if I should give up, stop testifying, stop blogging, just live a quiet life. But then I remembered Bronson's sneer on my birthday, Julie's look like I was a failure. No, I wouldn't let them win. A week later, Rachel called with huge news. The FBI arrested Victor in a Miami raid. He confessed Bronson paid him to handle me, but the plan failed because I kept moving. Rachel said her next article would expose Bronson's entire network from money laundering to hired hitmen. "Todd, you're why we cracked this," she said. "Want your name in the piece?" I declined. I didn't want fame, I just wanted my life back. I was cleared to return to Oak Park after the FBI confirmed the threat was reduced. Walking into my house, I hugged Max and cried not from fear, but relief. Mia came over that night bringing pizza and a bottle of wine. We sat on the couch, Max between us, and for the first time in weeks, I felt at home. But the story wasn't over. A few days later, I got a package with no sender. Inside was a cheap burner phone and a note. "Call this number if you want the truth." I almost tossed it, but curiosity won. I dialed and a woman's voice answered. "Todd? I'm Sophia Bronson's former secretary. I know everything about him, and I have what you need to end this for good." I met Sophia at a crowded Evanston park for safety. She was a woman in her 50s, silver hair, looking tired but determined. She handed me a small hard drive and said, "This is everything." Bronson tried to hide transaction logs, recorded calls, even videos of him meeting criminal partners. I kept it because I knew one day he'd go too far. I asked why she gave it to me. She looked me in the eye. "Because you didn't quit. I worked for Bronson for 20 years, and I saw him ruin so many people. You're the first one who scared him." I took the hard drive and sent it to Rachel, who practically screamed over the phone. "Todd, this is the key to locking Bronson up for good." Rachel's third article hit, titled "Chicago Real Estate King: The Secrets Behind a Criminal Empire." It exposed everything from money laundering deals to the plot to intimidate me. Bronson was sentenced to 25 years, no parole. His family fell apart. Julie's mom moved to a small Florida condo, and their cousins cut contact. Julie, per Annabelle, was still in recovery but started part-time work at a nonprofit helping the homeless. I didn't reach out, but I hoped she'd find peace. But life threw another twist. One morning while cleaning my workshop, I got a call from someone claiming to be Ronan's lawyer. He said Ronan was arrested in Mexico, and during questioning, he claimed Julie knew about some of Bronson's illegal deals before her affair. The lawyer wanted me to testify that Julie wasn't directly involved in exchange for Ronan providing more evidence against Bronson's partners. I was floored. Julie knew about her dad's crimes. And why was Ronan dragging her into this? I met Annabelle to dig deeper. She admitted Julie suspected her dad was shady but had no hard proof. She was scared of him, Annabelle said. He controlled everything in our family. I agreed to meet Ronan's lawyer Carl but made no promises. The meeting was at a small downtown Chicago office. Carl played me a recording of Ronan saying Julie helped move some sensitive documents for her dad but didn't know they tied to money laundering. I wasn't sure what to believe, but I agreed to testify that Julie never mentioned criminal activity to me on the condition the FBI investigated further. Ronan's case sparked a new media frenzy. Some outlets called Julie a victim of a criminal family. Others labeled her complicit. I stayed silent, but started getting letters from strangers, some supporting me, others accusing me of destroying Julie's family. One letter chilled me. "You think you're a hero, but you'll pay." I gave it to Vince, who upped security again. I wondered if I'd ever escape this cycle. Meanwhile, my furniture business unexpectedly exploded. A Chicago magazine featured my workshop, and I got orders from across the Midwest. I hired an assistant, Emma, a recent art school grad with a knack for woodworking. Emma became a friend, often joking that Max was the workshop's best employee. Mia pitched in designing a professional website, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't just surviving, I was building something lasting. But the past never fully let go. One night, watching baseball with Mia, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera and saw a stranger in a suit. I opened the door, keeping Max close, and he introduced himself as FBI Agent Daniels. He said they'd uncovered a new network tied to Bronson's old partners, and some still wanted revenge on me. "We don't think you're in immediate danger," he said, "but we need your long-term cooperation. You have information we need." I agreed on the condition that Mia, Max, and everyone I cared about were fully protected. Working with the FBI brought new pressure. I attended covert meetings, sifting through hundreds of documents to identify deals I'd overheard Bronson mention. Once I recognized a name on the list a family friend Julie had mentioned. I tipped off Daniels, and they nabbed the guy in a New York raid. Every FBI win was a victory, but also a reminder I was still living in the shadow of my past. I joined a Chicago support group for survivors of scandals or betrayal. There I met David, a guy who lost his company to a cheating partner. David said he found purpose coaching soccer for kids in low-income areas. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself," he said. That stuck with me, and I started volunteering more, not just at the animal shelter, but at a community center teaching kids basic woodworking. Seeing them grin when they finished their first shelf gave me a joy money couldn't buy. Mia and I grew closer. One night, walking along Lake Michigan, she took my hand and said, "Todd, I'm proud you didn't give up. But I want us to live, really live, not just survive." That pushed me to do something I never imagined. I proposed to Mia. Not a flashy proposal with a diamond ring. I got down on one knee in the grass with Max as my witness and asked if she'd build a future with me. She laughed, hugged me, and said yes before Max tackled us both. In that moment, I knew I'd found a real family. But just when I thought things were settling, another shock hit. Annabelle called panicked Todd. Julie ran away from the recovery center. She left a note saying she's going to find Ronan to fix everything. I'm scared she'll do something stupid. I couldn't believe it. Julie was still obsessed with Ronan after everything. I contacted Daniels and the FBI started tracking. They found Julie in a rundown Tijuana hotel living under a fake name trying to reach Ronan through anonymous channels. When they brought her back to the US, she was put in a strict monitoring program. Annabelle thanked me, but I just felt exhausted. Julie wasn't my responsibility, but I couldn't help a twinge of pity. Bronson's trial finally ended. He got life in prison for money laundering and organized crime. The news was flooded with images of him in an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from the real estate king. I was called to testify in related cases against his partners, and each time I stood in court, I felt stronger. I wasn't the guy mocked on my birthday. I was the one who helped topple a criminal empire. Now Mia and I are planning our wedding, a small ceremony in the park near our house with Max as the best man. My furniture business is expanding, and I just signed a deal with a Minneapolis chain. My blog became a book set to publish next year, and I'm speaking at resilience workshops across the US. Max is still the star with his Instagram now at over 10,000 followers. Julie per Annabelle is trying to rebuild, but she hasn't contacted me. Bronson sent me an apology letter from prison, but I didn't read it. I tore it up and tossed it along with the last of my anger. If you're still here, I want you to know life's never easy, but it's worth the fight. I thought I'd never survive that birthday. But here I am living a life I love. You can too. Start with something small, a step, a smile, a dream. I'll keep telling my story and I want to hear yours. Keep going because who knows what's waiting for you. My life started feeling like a detective novel with new surprising chapters unfolding constantly. I thought with Bronson behind bars, the threat from him and his allies would fade. I was wrong. One early morning as I was brewing coffee and getting ready to walk Max around Oak Park, I got a text from an unknown number. It read simply, "You think you won, but the game's not over. Check your mailbox." My heart raced. I ran outside scanning for anyone watching and opened the mailbox by my house. Inside was a black envelope, no address or sender. I brought it inside, hands trembling as I tore it open. There was a photo of me and Mia laughing at a Wicker Park diner a few weeks back. A red X was drawn over Mia's face with a handwritten note. Next. I called Vince, my criminal defense lawyer, and sent him a picture of the envelope. "Todd, this is no joke," Vince said, voice tight. "Someone's deliberately threatening you and targeting Mia shows they're going for your weak spot. You need to get her somewhere safe now." I felt the ground drop out from under me. Mia, who'd stood by me through every storm, who brought light to my life, was now in danger because of me. I called Mia, keeping my voice steady, and told her to come to my house immediately. When she arrived, I showed her the photo and explained. Mia, with her incredible calm, took my hand and said, "Todd, I'm not going anywhere. We'll face this together." But I knew I couldn't let her risk it. I convinced Mia to stay with her sister in Milwaukee, a few hours from Chicago. She agreed, but only after I promised to update her on everything and not do anything reckless alone. Meanwhile, Vince contacted FBI agent Daniels, who'd been with me from the start. Daniels confirmed that while Bronson was in prison, some of his old partners still active in an international crime network were out for revenge. "We suspect a guy named Ivan Petrov, a Chicago kingpin tied to Bronson," Daniels said. "He doesn't get his hands dirty, but he has a crew for the dirty work." Daniels suggested upgrading my home security with high-def cameras and alarms and gave me an emergency contact number. I complied, but it felt like I was living in a fortress, not a home. A few days later, while working in my workshop, Emma, my assistant, ran in, face pale. "Todd, someone just tried to break into the back office," she said, voice shaking. The office was a small room I used for files and orders. I checked and found the back door pried open, but the alarm had triggered, scaring the intruder off. I called the police, who found a folding knife left near the door, not the kind you carry for fun. They increased patrols around my neighborhood, but I knew this wasn't random. Someone was sending a message, and it was clear they wanted me scared. I refused to let fear control me. I contacted Rachel, the Chicago Tribune journalist, and told her about the new threats. Rachel, with her news hound instincts, suggested a deeper investigative piece not just on Bronson, but on the criminal network he left behind. "Todd, if we go public, it'll be harder for them to act," she said. "Light is what criminals fear most." I agreed on the condition that Rachel protected Mia's and my loved ones' identities. She promised, and we got to work. Rachel interviewed me via secure video call, and I detailed everything from the photo with the X to the knife. She also tapped FBI and Chicago police sources for more on Ivan Petrov. While waiting for Rachel's article, I got a frantic call from Annabelle, Julie's sister. She was sobbing, "Todd, I just got a package with a photo of Julie and the words, 'She knows too much.'" "I'm scared, Todd. What's going on?" I was stunned. Julie, despite all the pain she caused, didn't deserve this. I told Annabelle to take the package to the police immediately and contact Daniels. I also called the recovery center where Julie was, but they said she'd left days earlier, leaving no contact info. A chill ran through me. Did Julie really know something about Bronson's network? Or was this another scare tactic? I decided to find Julie myself, despite Vince and Daniel's strong objections. "Todd, you're making yourself a target," Vince warned. But I couldn't sit idle knowing Julie might be in danger. I called an old friend, Tony, a former Chicago PI who'd helped verify Ronan's USB. Tony agreed to help, and we tracked Julie's trail. We found a lead. A staff member at the recovery center said Julie mentioned wanting to go to a motel in Gary, Indiana to escape everything. Tony and I drove there, a rough area with abandoned buildings and a heavy vibe. At the motel, we found Julie in a small room looking more worn than ever, but alive. Julie broke down when she saw me. "Todd, I don't know what to do," she said. I overheard my dad talking to a guy named Ivan before he was arrested. He mentioned taking care of someone, and I think it was you. I was shocked. Julie knew about Ivan Petrov. She continued, "I didn't dare tell anyone because Dad said if I talked, I'd lose everything. But now they're after me." I convinced Julie to come with me and Tony, and we took her to an FBI-arranged safe house. On the way, Julie said she'd recorded some of Bronson's conversations on an old phone but left it at the motel out of fear. I called Daniels, and the FBI recovered the phone, which had evidence backing her claims. The next twist came when Daniels called days later. Todd, thanks to Julie's info, we located Ivan Petrov. He's hiding in an abandoned warehouse in West Chicago. We're raiding tonight, and we need you there to confirm some details. I hesitated. I'm no agent, just a regular guy. But I knew if I didn't face this, I'd live in fear forever. I agreed on the condition Mia was fully protected. Daniels promised, and that night I was taken to a secure observation point near the warehouse, listening via radio. The raid was like a movie. I heard shouts, gunfire, and finally Petrov's in custody. When Daniels brought me into the warehouse to confirm, I saw Petrov, a burly man with silver hair, cuffed but still smirking. He looked at me and said, "You got lucky, Todd, but there's always a next one." His words haunted me, but I stayed composed. The FBI seized piles of documents from the warehouse, revealing Petrov wasn't just working for Bronson, but running a transnational smuggling ring. His arrest was a major win, and the FBI thanked me for my role. But just when I thought it was over, another secret surfaced. Among the seized documents, the FBI found a target list from Petrov, and it wasn't just me, and Julie Annabelle was on it too. Apparently, Annabelle had overheard a call from Bronson about Petrov and told Julie, not realizing it made them both threats to the network. I called Annabelle immediately, telling her to get to a safe house, and the FBI provided protection. Annabelle, though terrified, thanked me. "Todd, I never thought you'd do all this for my family after everything." I didn't do it for them. I did it because no one deserves to live in fear. As things settled, I'd got an unexpected offer from a Los Angeles film producer. They'd read my blog and wanted to turn my story into a Netflix documentary focusing on how an ordinary guy took on a criminal empire. I hesitated. I didn't want my life turned into entertainment. But Mia convinced me, "Todd, this isn't just your story. It's for everyone who's been knocked down and got up. Share it." I agreed to meet the producer, and we started talks. They wanted me as a consultant to keep it authentic. I said yes, but insisted some profits go to organizations helping victims of financial crimes. My life now is a strange balance of normal and extraordinary. Mornings I make furniture play with Max and have coffee with Mia. Evenings I'm in FBI meetings or answering blog reader emails. I'm getting letters not just from the US, but from the UK, Australia, even South Africa. One from a man in Cape Town, Samuel, moved me. He said his wife left him for a con man, leaving him with a young daughter. Samuel started gardening to cope and now runs a small farm supplying his community. "Your story gave me hope," he wrote. Letters like that remind me that despite all the drama, I'm making a difference. But drama never fully leaves me. One day, teaching a woodworking class for kids at the community center, a boy handed me a note. "A man told me to give this to you," he said. I opened it. "You can't hide forever." My heart raced again. I called Daniels, and the FBI launched a new investigation. They suspect a former Petrov associate, Marco, trying to take over his boss's work. Marco's not as powerful, but he's still dangerous. The FBI suggested I relocate temporarily, but I refused. Oak Park is my home, and I won't be driven out. Instead, I bolstered security. I hired a bodyguard, Nate, a former Marine, to watch me for a few weeks. Nate became a friend, joking that Max was his most reliable coworker. I also started self-defense classes at a local gym, not to become Rambo, but to feel I could protect myself and those I love. Mia supported me, even joining a few sessions, making me laugh when she tried to flip me onto the mat. Meanwhile, I heard from Annabelle that Julie completed her recovery program and moved to Seattle to start over. She sent me a handwritten letter, not begging to reconcile, but thanking me. "Todd, you saved me even though you didn't have to," she wrote. "I won't waste this chance." I didn't reply, but kept the letter in a box with other past memories. I'm not angry at Julie anymore, but I don't want her in my future. Marco's case ended abruptly. The FBI caught him in a Detroit drug deal, and he admitted he only wanted to scare me to prove himself to other criminals. With Marco locked up, I could finally breathe. But I know I'll always be cautious. Bronson, Petrov. Marco, they're reminders that power and greed can turn people into monsters. I decided to use my story to inspire not just through my blog or documentary, but through action. I started a small fund with furniture business profits to help survivors of financial scams. It's not huge, but it's helped a few Chicago families pay rent or buy school books. Mia and I had our wedding on a vibrant fall day in the park near our house. Max naturally stole the show with a red bow tie. Friends, family, Emma, and Nate were there, making it a day I'll never forget. As Mia and I danced our first dance under string lights, I looked around and realized that despite life's challenges, I'd found true happiness. I'm no longer the guy mocked on his birthday or the one hiding in the shadows. I'm Todd, who fought and won not just for myself, but for everyone who thought they couldn't get back up. But the story doesn't stop. One morning, checking emails, I got a message from someone claiming to be an old friend of Bronson's. It read, "You think it's over, but there are secrets even the FBI doesn't know. Meet me if you want the truth." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to delete it and move on. But another part, the part that got me through these years, wanted to know. I called Vince, who sighed, "Todd, you really never quit." I laughed, but I knew he was right. I don't know who this person is or what their secrets are, but I'll find out. Not for revenge, but because I've learned the truth. However painful is always worth chasing. If you're still here, I want you to pause and think what's waiting for you ahead. A challenge. A chance, or just an ordinary day full of potential. I thought my life ended in that room of champagne and humiliation. I was wrong. My life is an adventure, and yours can be too. Take a step, even a small one, and who knows, you might find yourself like I did.